Ironically, one of the biggest challenges was finding so many new players to come and join the Surge from different areas that continued to fit the culture that we wanted to build. Certainly very disappointing. Felt like we had a shot. Knew it was going to be a difficult battle. Bet on yourself. Be very passionate about what you do and be willing to work like crazy and go all in on what you feel your strengths are and what you're blessed to be able to do.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Imported Podcast. Today on the show, we have got Coach Jordan Neuman, head coach of the Stuttgart Surge in the European League of Football. This is his second time on the podcast. We talked about his first season being the head coach of the Stuttgart Surge, playing in the European League of Football Championship game, looking forward to 2024 and his hopes and ideas for the future of the Surge, and much more. Now, there's a little bit of kind of static frequency noise for a few minutes at the beginning. Sorry about that. It does go away after a couple minutes, so just kind of fight through that because it does go away. I apologize for that, but without further ado, Coach Jordan Neuman.
We're back on the podcast. Now we're sitting in couches this time. Last time we were sitting on squeaky little chairs.
It's true. Come a long way.
We have come a long, long way, the Imported Podcast. There we go. So, important, as per tradition, the first topic is a hard-hitting one, as we do on the Imported Podcast. Detroit Lions are 3-1. Talk to me about your emotions right now, where we're sitting.
Emotions are very high. I'm all in. I'm emotionally all in. So if this doesn't go well, you're not going to hear from me for a while because, yeah, we're looking good, man. Looking good for the first time since I think 93 or so was the last time we won the division.
Yeah.
And, yeah, very excited.
They stormed the field at Lambeau, I heard.
Took over Lambeau.
Yeah.
Took it over. You saw a lot of blue there for the first time in a long time, yeah.
Actually, I saw the Packers made an official statement about it.
Did they really?
Yeah, they said basically
they had to address it.
They had to address it. It was so big. Basically saying they encourage Packers fans, if they have to sell their tickets, like season ticket holders, to sell them to Packers fans.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it demanded even a response.
Yeah.
All right, so Detroit Lions looking pretty good, 3-1, with the potential to ruin or make your Thanksgiving.
Yes.
For every year.
Yes.
Last year we were at your house for Thanksgiving.
Absolutely. That's typically how my Thanksgivings go, depending on how they play.
This is gonna be the year. I told you Laura is a Pat or is
that's
a
great.
Lions
That's
fan
awesome.
Now, so I'm kind of in it. I'm a peripheral fan.
Okay.
I'm rooting for you guys.
Great. Appreciate it.
So we are about 1 year out from the big decision. Like we did this basically, I think, like 11 months ago, and you had just accepted the Surge coaching job. And that was, like we talked about, that was a huge decision with a lot of thought put into that, a lot of weighing of everything. 1 year later, how are you feeling about it?
That it was the right move. It was the right move. We don't need to rehash necessarily where things was. I think it's pretty played out, like why the decision was made.
Yep.
But when I look at everything that's happened over the last 11 months, the experiences we've all got to have, kind of the highs, the lows, if I speak for me personally, I feel like I've grown as a person. I feel like I've grown as a football coach. And just thinking back to it all, everything that, kind of went through, just really happy I made the decision and really happy I decided to do it.
Yeah, that was one of the questions actually that I had, because basically it's like so cliche, though. So you have to leave your comfort zone to like grow and challenge yourself.
That's exactly what it is. It was just leaving your comfort zone because, I was in such a great situation and a great place and everything. And, that's something I probably could have done the next, 20, 30 years, just being real comfortable and real steady where I was at.
Yep.
And, but, was just looking for, kind of a next step, let's say, just in a personal development and in a professional development where I feel I got both. And like I said, just looking back, it still feels to this day like it was the right move.
Yeah. I have some more like kind of specific questions I want to ask you kind of about the past year, but before we do that, I want to ask, we're 1 week out, exactly 1 week out from the championship game. Of course, everybody knows, made it all the way to the championship game. Did not win the game. How are you feeling now, 7 days out? What are your kind of emotions from that game and that situation?
Yeah, certainly very disappointing. Felt like we had a shot. Knew it was going to be a difficult battle, just with Ryan Fire and how strong they were, and they're a great team. Very proud of what we accomplished this year. It did feel very much like, okay, this is only the start. This is only the beginning, of it just, and especially like starting the off season right now, of feeling like how much more I know how the league works, kind of the details of it all, what to look out for, thinking about where we are right now compared to where we were last year sitting at this time, and feeling very excited about the future. I laughed with Lewis Geyer after the game a little bit, just when you find those little moments to trying to find a time to kind of smile about, something. Around a year ago at this time, Lewis Geyer was like one of the first guys I had, and just I said, hey, man, about 12 months ago, it was me and you, and that's all we had. And now, so we're sitting with a better foundation. We're sitting with a foundation. Didn't even have a foundation last year at this time. Sitting with a foundation to start. So excited about that. Disappointed about the loss. Wanted to make sure we all learn from the loss and take a lot of great lessons out of it. Soaking up that experience that we had, because that was a lot of fun. Sit there and playing in a sold-out stadium of 32,000 people. It was loud, and being really proud of the guys, how they handled, because it was basically a road game for us too. We were having to go to silent count and handle all that, and just kind of seeing the way we kind of handled everything and stuff, I thought was really good. I think Ryan Fire was the deserved champion there. And if I look now to the future, what I think is great for the league and European football is because that Ryan Fire team was so strong, they have now set a standard of what level you have to reach to be a champion. Yeah. So everybody now will be gunning for that level and that standard that they have now set, which is, to be quite honest, a new standard, I say, for European football and the ELF, for what they were able to put together and do. So it's, a lot of great compliments to them from the coaching and talent acquisition and organizational stuff, because, they've set a standard in kind of many different areas. And when you have that, the ambitious teams are going to be shooting for that, and they're going to go above and beyond to try and reach that if that's their ultimate goal, which is going to be us.
Man, that is a great point. I didn't even think about that, but now that is what everybody has to aim for. There's something concrete, like what an organization could look like to become a champion in this league. And it's just the old high tide raises all ships. Yeah. Basically, everyone's going to be gunning after that and going after that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think are some specific things that you could take away kind of from that organization that we could implement?
I think what you take away from is certainly talent acquisition. Yeah. Is very important. There's a certain level of talent you need to acquire. And then just from an organizational standpoint, I can't necessarily speak to the ins and outs. I don't necessarily what they do. Sure. You just know the final product of bringing fans to the stadiums and those numbers and stuff like that, which I feel Stuttgart's we're on the way up with all that stuff, because our fan attendance, I think, almost doubled this year. The atmosphere in the stadiums was outstanding. So there's so many things organizationally I feel like we're also on our way up, moving from. So when I look at all that, it's just like you see kind of what the final product is, and then I think it's every individual organization or franchise's job to figure out what works best for them to try and reach that level. And then every organization is basically going to take a different path to try and get there. That fits for them the best.
Sense, I mean, just what you said, the fact that the Surge went from basically, what was it, like 2,000 or right around 2,000 fans a game to almost 4,000 a game. Mm-hmm. And that home stadium atmosphere is crazy. I remember a few times just being on the sideline there. Maybe it was like, whether it was 4,000 or 5,000 people, insane football atmosphere, insanely loud, and just like what a great home environment for the Surge to have. And Of course, yeah, the Ryan Fire level when we had 31,000 at the championship game, that was a next level up. But yeah, like I said, it's just a great thing to strive for. Okay, going back on what you said about last season, there basically being no foundation, you having to work from scratch. After having such a successful year this year in so many different facets with the organization, do you feel like it's going to be easier this offseason when it starts, when, talking to players, talking to talent, trying to put together everything from next year?
I do think it's going to be easier. Now in the ELF, it's never easy just because there's so many quality teams, recruiting aggressively players. So, I mean, it's a very, very competitive recruiting environment. But for sure that success is going to help a lot. I think last year when I was recruiting people, the only thing I was recruiting off of was a vision, right, maybe a little bit of a reputation. And that was it. There was nothing tangible to show. And now there's something very tangible to see for recruits. And, and I think people have taken notice. I do think, we've shown what we're capable of. I do believe we're a team that's only going to get better from here. So with all that, yes, I anticipate being able to acquire talent that's necessary talent to make us better as a football team. And then also, one of the main goals is to bring our team back, recruit our own guys. And then that's step one, to bring this team back, which I very much want to do. And yeah, I'm really excited about the opportunity to begin recruiting here pretty soon.
I can't wait for 2024 Surge. I mean, just like the base that's been set, the potential, the guys that's around the program, the players, and then of course adding some people next year. Just building off what this year was. I cannot wait. I like the sky's the limit. Not to put too much pressure on you.
Yeah, sure.
I am expecting perfection.
All good, man.
We need it for my videos.
Well, that's always the main goal, is to make sure the videos.
We always know we're just out there on the football field for my videos.
Yes,
we got to make sure we know what the priorities are. For those who don't know, I always tell Coach Neuman when we're on the field that all the success is just so I can make a good video, and it's
all about the content.
It's all about the content. That's what we're about. Yeah. You mentioned that you've kind of grown both personally and professionally, like as a coach and as a person. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel you've grown as a coach in this last year?
Yeah, this next part is almost personally and professionally of just, basically stepping out, of my comfort zone, right? Like I came into, Schwäbisch Hall, I was a player, transitioned into being a coach and then head coach. And, once I became head coach, started molding things to, my, culture and vision of how kind of I wanted things with the people around me. But there was still always a foundation there. That had been built and previous and stuff like that. So there was always, there was a comfort zone to it. And I was also in a situation where, I was very kind of, stable with my job and very comfortable and things were going very well and all that kind of stuff. So, to just leave all that, is such there was a lot of risk to it, and there was an opportunity there when you do something like that, step out of your comfort zone, is to grow, And I feel that's exactly what happened, because I was walking into something that not only basically had no foundation, but unfortunately, it would have probably been better if there was no foundation there. True. There was a negative foundation there that had to be rebuilt and from the start. And I think that doing something like that and betting on yourself and believing in yourself that you can go take on a task and a challenge like that very much is what offered me the opportunity to grow both personally and professionally. Now, so having said that, I was also very, very lucky that, I have, at the starting point, two people I'm so close with and have so much trust in, and Johnny Brenner and Cody Pastorino, that, also came, that we came together and decided to do it together. And I'm sure they would probably tell you the same thing, that there was a lot of personal and professional growth on their sides as well. So I just think that's a mentality thing of, just willing to at some point bet on yourself and take on a new challenge and take on something new, which in the end was really what it was about. It was about trying to build something new and build it in, my vision and how I saw things going. And looking back over the last 12 months, it's really cool to see that so many things we thought were possible actually came to fruition, and because we felt like, okay, if we did this, we can put this team together, we can, and if the success comes, then people will come to the stands. And there was just so many things we thought about, like, that really, could be us in that league with everything it offers from a competitive standpoint. And that's really the ultimate thing behind it, is you're chasing the competition, right? Like, you're chasing, where can I go compete at the absolute highest top level? Because we've never been the type of people or whatever that, is just going to be kind of satisfied where we're at, right? And that was, even looking back to all the Schwäbisch Hall years, it was a constant, just burning desire to be better from year to year to year. And the ELF kind of opened this new, like, section up where, like, there was different competition. And, you're just sitting there like, okay, where are the best coaches? Where are the best players? I want to go there. And that's what makes you so passionate about, like, getting to a final like Ryan Fire. And it's almost really cool what they've been able to build, because now the passion and desire is there. It's like, okay, how can I get to that level and go beat them, right? Because it's a new level that we all want to reach. And ultimately, that's just kind of what drives us. And I'm long-winded here, but yeah, that's the excitement of it all. And that's kind of the long 12-month battle of just growing professionally and personally.
Yeah, I love that. And I kind of, what you just said there, I thought back to a moment right after the game in the locker room, after we lost, kind of in the coach's locker room, and everyone was, bummed out and trying to find moments of brevity as well, or of lightness. And I remember somebody said, like, all right, now how are we going to get through? How are we going to beat this team? And it's cool to see how the goals and everything grow so quickly when you take your step out of the comfort zone. Like, at first it was, okay, let's try and build this team, this organization into something manageable, something better than it was in the past. Then you do that so quickly already, and then already now there's a new goal. It's like, how do we win a championship? Mm-hmm. And it's really cool to see that. And I also got to give you a little a shout out, because for me, like, this whole step into the European League of Football and Stuttgart Surge and everything, it's been great for me personally. And I've gotten so many opportunities, whether it's hosting the podcast or hosting the honor show or just doing all sorts of media stuff with football in Europe. And it was great for me to have somebody kind of in front, kind of open the door a little bit and show, like, hey, it's good to take these risks. Like, I've always been kind of a risk taker. But, when you're in a different country, and I've been in such a comfortable situation for so many years, it was nice and very helpful and inspiring to have kind of that opening of the door and be like, hey, this is possible. You can take a risk. You can take on a new challenge. And got to give that to you, Coach Neuman. Appreciate it. Appreciate you creeping that door open for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just when you are in a leadership role, which I am, as a head coach, I never want anybody who's working for me or with me or whatever to, think, we're just going through the motions or we're satisfied where we're at. It should always be about wanting to take the next step and getting better and wanting more, and from a year to year to year. And if you break it down to a month to month and day to day, you should constantly be wanting to get better. And there should be I always use the word aggressive, desire to move forward and be passionate about that. And I am looking back at it, I am, if I can say this, I am, proud to hear stories like that, like where I knew, like, I was going to step out and take the risk. And then, like I said, like you mentioned, like, open the door a little bit, where someone like you've just had so much success, over the past however long. And that's been so cool to see. And not just you, but there's been so many people who kind of came and came with us. And when I say came with us, I mean, that always brings in kind of a thought process of, like, all of us came from Schwäbisch Hall to do this, which just is not the case whatsoever, right? And I know that's been talked about quite a bit. I'm talking about, when I say come with us, I'm talking about people came with us from everywhere, everywhere, and all these different people that jumped in and jumped on. And to see someone like Louis Geyer have a just complete breakout season, and whether it's Yannick Meyer to have a breakout year, and I don't want to start naming too many individual people because I'm gonna start forgetting stuff, but there's a lot of people who ended up having great years and great seasons, and really started to make a name for themselves that hadn't before, and that's been a lot of fun to see, to everybody sharing this success together.
Yeah. I mean, it really is so cool. And I think ultimately, like, to put it down in short, is the calculated risk pays off, and you have to be willing to take these risks. Sometimes that they don't hit, but you got to be willing to take these swings in life, and that's where so much satisfaction and progress is made, is outside of these. When we look at the season as a whole, are there any moments that kind of stick out to you where you felt like, okay, we are in the right direction? Any moments where you feel like, okay, after this practice or game or moment, we are concretely on the path that I hoped we would be on? Is there anything where you felt like there's like a little checkpoint there?
Yeah, so I'd say at Paris, because I went into that game having a feeling of what kind of team I thought we would have. Wasn't 100% sure. And then whenever we went into Paris and won and came back in the fourth quarter, it's like, okay, I feel like I know what we got here. A confirmation of that game in Paris was beating Swarco at home. I think that was a really big one. And then you start kind of going on a bit of a roll, and we're 5-0, I believe. And it's like, okay, now we're going to start looking at some bigger picture stuff. Now we're looking at, okay, not just functioning in this league, but really trying to make a name for ourselves in this league. And right when you're thinking, okay, we're getting it all figured out, bang, we walk into Switzerland, and we didn't just lose, we got beat, right? And then it's like, and that was just such a wake-up call. Like, you don't get to just get on this rhythm and roll in this league, and that'll just take care of it. There is no, like, okay, we're 5-0. Here we're playing a team that's, I think it was 0-5 or 1-4 or something like that at the time. And, okay, we'll win, right? We'll win the game. And that was a wake-up call to the league a little bit, of that you got to be really on top of it, bringing it on a week-to-week basis. But then, right around at Milan, I think we started to really get on a roll. And even though we followed that up with a loss to Munich in a very, very close game, I started to see, the steps moving forward. And then after that, it just kind of became, okay, we're really locked in and in a rhythm. And I knew at that point we could really make a run.
Yeah. I mean, it was so cool to see that it kind of just developed all from that. Because like you said, okay, we're going from, at first, it's, you're not trying to just function in this league. You're trying to be successful and like hitting some of these checkpoints and having those and building that momentum. But yeah, it's just kind of a testament to the league that you can't roll in to any game in this league and think, all right, we're going to be fine, even if we're 5-0 and they're 0-5. Can you talk a little bit about what was the feeling in Switzerland? That was the one game that I wasn't at. I was back in the States. I wasn't there. So besides me not being there and bringing my cameraman vibes,
one of the key points. Yeah, Switzerland was like, I've really almost in the moment had this feeling of like, we've all watched so much football and feel like you're like in one of these, college football, the number 3 team taking on an unranked team or something like that. And somehow you walk out of the weekend, the unranked team won or something along those lines. Right. And yeah, they just did a great job. I mean, they just came in from the start. It was a really hard environment to play in. It was really loud. The fans were on top of you. They came out fired up. And it was just such a good lesson that day to learn. It was such a hard game. And, it's one of those things you look back on. It's like they just beat us. You walk away and it's like there's not really a lot to say. I mean, obviously you can talk about, well, we didn't play good and this happened and that happened. I don't think we coached well at all, specifically offensively. I don't think I coached well in that game at all. And it was such a wake-up call that you better be on top of this thing on a week-to-week basis. So, and I said it on the bus on the way home. I was like, this really sucks, but boy, this looks really good for the league. Because, it just shows anybody can beat anybody at this point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. A point that is interesting to me is like everybody sees all this, like the success that the Surge had this season, getting to the championship game. But there was quite a bit of adversity within the team as well. Played with 3 different starting quarterbacks throughout the year. Starting quarterback Riley Hennessy and captain getting injured and having to get some solutions to that. Can you talk a little bit about this kind of quarterback adversity or injury adversity, I guess, that the team faced, and then but still kept on, plugging away and kept improving and kept getting better?
Yeah, I think it's a testament to the kind of the strength of the team, the team as a whole. Obviously, losing Riley was tough. And then, Jan was such an important part of the whole process of it all. I mean, this guy was sitting on a couch, moved on from football, and was just so thankful for him coming in and doing what he did, because he came in, got us 2 wins. The Switzerland game didn't go well at all, but that shouldn't overshadow that the guy walked off the couch and took us to 2-1. And he kind of filled that role, in that time where we needed somebody on short notice, because we found out we lost Riley on Monday evening, and we had, due to league rules, until Tuesday at noon to find a replacement. So we found a replacement within 12 hours, and thank goodness Jan was there, because he helped us, put us in a position to where we could win the conference and get a home playoff game and all that. And then so when Jan, we knew, was going to be done at some point in the season, just because prior obligations, Ken was more of a lucky thing that he fell into our lap, and I'm so thankful he did, because, boy, he came in and did a great job. And I'm really happy for him, because things didn't go great in Leipzig, but he got an opportunity to come in and show what he can really do, and that's gonna be very beneficial for him. So I was happy for him, and then I always knew as soon as Riley was ready, he was the guy.
Yeah. One thing that I'm always impressed with your teams that I've had both as a player and this year as a media guy, camera guy on the sideline with the team, is kind of the way that everybody stays, for the most part, positive, especially when there's adversity, especially when bad things happen. Like, there's always kind of this feeling like if the defense screws up, offense comes out with no bitching or yelling at the defense, or vice versa. Everybody's got everybody's back. And I'm wondering if you could kind of articulate your coaching philosophy or what you think about this.
Yeah, I think that comes from, just kind of the message we're selling from the very beginning, because I do, one of my biggest philosophies is, how an offense, defense, and special teams interact with each other is one of your biggest points of success, of how they support and get each other's back in tough times and stuff like that. So these are points that we talk about and go over with the team and try and make them really understand that, this is going to bring success to you, as long as, something happens on the field with the offense. The defense shouldn't say a word and just go play. And the same thing with the offense or special teams. And ultimately, I feel like that's what really brings a lot of success. So, it's just a philosophical thing that we talk about. And then just overall, I do feel like myself and my staff, we coach, much more in a positive direction as opposed to like a negative direction. I just probably think it kind of stems from those things.
Well, what I was going to say is I don't think I've ever seen you like chew out a player. Have you?
That's a good question. Man, I'm so present in those moments where, like, am I yelling at a player to vent frustration? And I almost feel like the answer is almost always yes. If you're just absolutely losing your shit for an extended period of time on a player, for sure, a short outburst or something like that, I think there's a lesson to be learned there and kind of a standard that you're setting. But just to unleash on somebody, my personal feeling is just I'm venting frustration as opposed to having a very clear thought process. I'm trying to get a message through to this player. So that's probably why that is. And ultimately, I hope there's enough respect there from a player to a coach, myself, or somebody on my staff, where if I'm looking at you and I'm talking to you about something and trying to get a message across to you, I don't need to be yelling or screaming or losing my shit on you enough to where that's when you'll tune in and respect what I have to say. So I think that's really where that comes from, of just I feel like I can get through to you by just talking to you in more of a calmer tone as much as I could if I was screaming and yelling.
Do you think also that kind of the I feel like you have a certain philosophy or type of player that you go after that fit the culture of what you're doing? Do you feel like also you are looking out for guys who you can communicate with on this type of level when you're recruiting a player, like guys that, you know?
There is a very specific type of player I like having on our teams, and maybe that's why it kind of works, because we're not putting ourselves in a position where you're mixing two things that just don't fit together. So the certain personality type and player type that we bring in are exactly the type of players who ultimately will listen to a message that doesn't need to be screamed and yelled at them to get through to them, which is why a lot of times I think it does fit and it does work.
There was sort of like when you came to the Surge, there was a lot of rumblings, a lot of, I guess we'll call it rumblings, talkings about how you just took your old team from the GFL and went to the Stuttgart Surge, just moved everybody over and just plug and play sort of thing. So can you talk a little bit about these rumors or this idea?
Yeah, so overblown, so overblown. Certainly with myself and the 4 or 5 coaches that we took with us, and for people who watch, maybe they're going to nitpick and be like, well, actually it was 6.5 coaches or whatever. I don't know the exact numbers. And then anywhere between 13, 15 players, something like that. So I can see how kind of the look a little bit is there for sure. There's no denying that there is, Unicorns personnel and players who came, right? That's for sure. But to make this thing seem anywhere that this was just an overwhelming Unicorns team is so far beyond the reality of it all. I mean, we've got 65 players on our roster, and so many of them came from anywhere and everywhere. And a good amount of them were Stuttgart Surge players. I mean, we had almost the exact same amount of Stuttgart Surge players from 2022 as we had new Schwäbisch Hall players.
You don't hear about that.
Well, yeah, there's no doubt in my mind you don't hear about that. So, yeah, I understand the perception. It's an easy perception just to throw out there. But, it's unfortunate that that's kind of was a lot of the talking points. In the beginning, it was very unfortunate. But as the season went on, I think those kind of voices got a little less. And then even those who are still kind of trying to hang on to that narrative that wasn't the case was, for the most part, just kind of rolled your eyes at and be like, yeah, okay, that's, you're hanging on to something you need to let go of at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just see, it just was silly. And I did a solo podcast right here where I just kind of went on a little rant and talked about it a little bit. But yeah, I think kind of as the season goes on and people see the reality, that sort of dies down a little bit. So we talked a little bit about, I don't know, kind of I guess I would say the positives of this whole decision and everything that has happened in the past 12 months or so. Can you talk to me a little bit, though, about the biggest challenges that you faced maybe once you made the decision and in building this team and throughout the season?
Exactly what we just talked about. And the challenge was finding so many new players.
What do you mean? Because you just on all your players.
Yeah, I mean, that was ironically one of the biggest challenges was finding so many new players to come and join the Surge from different areas that continued to fit the culture that we wanted to build and that were talented football players and that fit all together. and and to sell these guys on a vision of what we think it would be. So that was one of the biggest challenges of first building the team. The second biggest challenge was getting together organizationally within the Surge, because that's a big part of running an ELF team is organizationally, and just making sure we're doing the best job we can on that side. And a shout out to someone like a Robin Hammer, who I think is a great kind of just example of us moving forward, is continuing to find somebody who came in, really helped us on the football operations side, kind of stabilized some things for us. And that's another reason going into this offseason that's so exciting moving into next year, is like having someone like him, and then continuing to work with like Suni and some of the guys we have to continue to build this thing both on the field and off the field, and ultimately produce an organization that's very structured all the way around, because ultimately it's about player experience, and player experience will be affected on the field and off the field with how things go. And because when you give a player a great experience, they want to keep coming back. And if players keep coming back, it's continuity, and continuity is what brings success.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Robin was just absolute killer when it comes to logistics and planning. It's like, although every question that you could have, or I remember being as a player, when you're wondering, what's on the schedule, what are we doing from these 15 minutes or whatever, he'd have it all the way down. He'd have the meals that are going to be delivered or that you're going to have. And
no offense to Robin if you're watching, but it's very odd to see someone have so much passion for football operations, which he does. He has a passion.
What a specific passion.
Yes, and he does a great job with it. So continuing to add the right people like that is what we'll continue to be doing.
Yeah. Football in Europe overall, it's really booming. I mean, when we think about that championship game, like that really, I don't know, it almost felt like an NFL game. Like it was crazy.
Well, what was interesting about it was all the stuff that happened before, like the 3 hours tailgating and all that kind of stuff that you see at NFL stadiums, and then the amount of people for sure. And then I remember pregame, like looking at the sidelines. Whenever you see like a college football game or NFL game, the sidelines are always packed because there's the marching band, there's the TV crew, there's this, and then there's that. There's just not a lot of room. And I remember looking at the sidelines, and the sidelines were packed. Not only was the stadium packed, the sidelines were packed. And it's like, okay, you can feel this is, kind of a very professional atmosphere. And one of the things I think the ELF also gives you, whenever you play on a stage like that, the players themselves are aware of it and are going to do everything they can to put their best performance on the field. And the way they're going to put their best performance on the field is their commitment to practice and the weight room and film study. And I think that's what you're also getting in the ELF, is everybody is going to want to show the best version of themselves on a weekly basis. And therefore, they're just given crazy amounts of time, like we all did as football players, especially in the USA, to that. And so the dedication level, I think, also just from the players themselves is I don't think you have very many players in the ELF who are just kind of showing up just to kind of do it. I think you have almost all are very dedicated, a large amount of the year.
I even feel it like in the media side of things, like because everything is operated at such a high level, like from, I don't know, just how everything looks, how the games go, how the players are, even like on the media side. I'm like, I got to bring my best. I got to make my best videos possible and, see what some other teams put out. And I feel competitive as well on that front.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point. Like everybody's competing, right? Everybody's competing in everything, in every facet of this whole thing. It's bringing out the best of everybody, because if you're not bringing your best, it's going to affect everything. We need great video content from the Surge. We need it. It's going to bring people to the stands. It's going to bring players here that want to play here. And every team's like that. And everybody's fighting to be the best they can in all the areas. And you can just feel that competition.
When you are going to inevitably start recruiting this year for the Stuttgart Surge, what is your message to a player Like what can somebody? Why should somebody play for the Stuttgart Surge next year?
Number one, you're going to have an opportunity to compete for a championship. You're going to be professionally coached. We will make you better. We will make you a better football player. I'm very confident in that. You're going to come into an environment that is very accepting and very we want to see you have your best experience both on and off the field because we care very much about that. You know, it's not just about putting guys on the field and going to win football games. Ultimately, there's an experience factor to it all that I want guys to have a really good one for, and that we as coaches and myself as a head coach and our organization will do everything we possibly can to fight that your experience is a great one. And I think so ultimately, like I think you asked me before, is like it's not so much me as a head coach about my personal relationship to these players, which I hope I have a great one, which I really hope I do. But my number one point is that their experience is a great one. And that is the top priority for me. And I want to do everything I can to give them a great experience by putting them in the best position to win, become a better football player, and have a great off-field experience with us as well.
Nice.
Okay. Bet on yourself. You know, be very passionate about what you do, and be willing to work like crazy and go all in on what you feel your strengths are and what you're blessed to be able to do.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I will follow this advice.
Great.
Thank you, Coach Jordan Neuman. Appreciate you coming on the podcast, and congrats on the success this year. And we are looking forward to 2024 Stuttgart Surge.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Yeah.